Welcome to Hit or Miss. This is the series where I review anime, movie, TV shows, games, you name it. If it's something that piques my interest, I'm going to review it. And today we're looking at Hogwarts Legacy. Now, this is a game I had on my radar for a very long time. It wasn't something that I was, at the edge of my seat waiting for, but it was a game that I was thoroughly interested in because I grew up playing the Harry Potter games on the PS2 and the GameCube, and they were, at least in my opinions, pretty good. Maybe I'm living in nostalgia, maybe I got my rose-tinted glasses on, but I had a great time. So the idea of another Harry Potter game, or at least in the Hogwarts universe coming out, and you got to make your own character, that's like a win-win. That's like an easy clap, make money printing machine. And that's what this game did. But let's get into what I liked, what I didn't like, and everything else. So the story for this game is all right. It's nothing like amazing, top 10 out of 10. I went home and, I started crying, sitting down in a chair, just rethinking the entire game and just how it all unfolded. It's not even close. It was like if I had to give a rating scale, I guess, maybe like a 6.5 to a 7 out of 10. Like, it's good enough. That's the best way I can describe the story. It's good enough. And for a single player game, it's like, I guess you could sit there and weigh and be like, well, if this is a single player game that's supposed to be focused on the story, that's kind of not too great, but it's good enough where it makes you want to at least keep playing almost to the end of the game. For me, I was hooked all the way until about mid game to late game. And it's sort of when everything was about to start wrapping up and finishing, I was kind of like, there was two thoughts I had. One part of me was like, this is it? That's it? We're already finishing? And then the other part, I was like, all right, thank God. I'm glad I'm finishing this. Because while it was great, I feel like just the way everything led up and the way the story was coming together, it just felt predictable. Just the way how everything was unfolding. The plot twist, the things that they're supposed to shock you and just be like, oh my God, I didn't see this coming. Wasn't really like plot twist to me that I was like, oh my God, wow, I definitely didn't see this coming. Like, there wasn't really any of that. And to me, a predictable story, while it's not a bad story, to me, it's just not an enjoyable story. I like when things happen that I didn't really see coming, or things that really caught me off guard. And there was like maybe 1 or 2 moments throughout this entire game that did that. Now, the game does introduce you to 4 different companions, one for each of their respective house. You would have one for Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, and Slytherin. And alongside them being your companion, you would have missions that you would do with them, where I guess you get to sort of bond with the character more, get to know their backstory, who they are, and why they play a role in being your friend / companion. The unfortunate part with this is that's really where it ends. The only time you're with those companions is if you go on a mission with them. They have like a select mission, you click on it, you track quests, and you do it. That's it. That's the only time you actually do a mission with these companions. Besides that, they don't exist. It isn't like you can take them on a free roam, you go explore the vast world of Hogwarts, and you go and check out everything. No, it doesn't work that way. They're only there with you for the select missions, and then they vanish. That's it. So that's kind of disappointing, as I feel like there's a lot of potential that could have been done with that, as the system's already kind of in place. You already have them on missions with you. I take it if you have them going on missions with you, then it might interfere with whatever systems they have set up. So maybe that's why they don't have it included. But again, it is kind of disappointing for them to be your companions, your friends. You have this big open world, and they can't even at least just be right beside you and help you fight enemies, even if they don't really contribute much to the story itself or what you're actually doing when you explore the free roam world. Now, I think the biggest problem that comes with this game, and this is where I really want to wait and touch on with the story more, because while the story again is all right, the problem I feel is the backstory and understanding like your professors, your story, just your classmates, everything, it kind of doesn't exist. And let me explain. So from the trailers that people saw, some had I don't even know if I want to say some, maybe like I want to say half of people, at least from what I read around, had the idea that this was going to like be like Persona, right? A school simulator where during the day you're going through school, you're learning spells and you're attending classes and all this other shit, and then like in the afternoon, that's when it's like serious time. You go explore Hogwarts and you go around the world and you start saving the day. But this game isn't really that. It's not even close. The way the game presents their classes is the first time around, you'll go through all your courses. So you'll meet each professor individually for their class, and they'll have like this nice intro. You get to sort of get to understanding what the class is, and you sort of get like your little interaction with the students and just having kumbaya. It's almost like you're watching Harry Potter, right? You're reliving the class moments, but that's really it. After that first interaction, the only time you come back around is when you learn a new spell, and the way and the way that works is when you learn a new spell, you get assignments. And assignments is you just do, it's kind of like a Ubisoft mission almost, like go pop 5 balloons and go fly around and do a little spin around attack, and you learn a new spell, and then you go back to your professor. And sometimes, depending on which professor it is in a class, you might get like a little cutscene before you talk to them, So it'll be like you in class and you do like a quick little interaction for like, I don't know what, 30 seconds. And then it says, all right, guys, class is over. All right. Hey, new student, come here real quick. Hey, you doing good on your assignments. Here's a new lesson. Flip your wand around and voila, you learned a new magic trick. And that's really how it works. There's really no real school simulator or real interaction with that. And I know for some people that was like a real deterrent. It really pushed people away, and they're like, man, I was really hoping, there'd be like more to do with the school itself. When this game isn't really focused on that. It's more like, what are your adventures outside of school? What you do in school is it's almost like a front. It's almost like you have like, it's like, this is what I do in my daytime. I'm a school student. And then at nighttime, you're like some Batman, you're fucking heroic. You're going across the world trying to save people on all your adventures and shit. That's pretty much what Hogwarts comes out as. Like, your time in Hogwarts, the school itself, doesn't really mean or matter much at all. You're just pretty much like a student in spirit, but all the rules and regulations that apply to you only matter when you're actually doing a mission itself. But yeah, the story's all right. Again, nothing bad, but nothing amazing. Again, it's not something I'm going to remember probably in half a year. It's probably going to be forgettable, but it doesn't mean necessarily that's the worst story I ever played. It's just not a memorable story. Moving on, we'll now get to the gameplay, character creation, all that shit. Character creator, it's all right. If you played RPGs, you played other games that have character creators, this one's probably going to leave you pretty underwhelmed because it doesn't really feel like a character creator. There's not any actual real in-depth creation when it comes to making your character. And that was actually one of people's biggest complaints that I've seen, is that typically the character you make in your character creator looks all right and looks decent, but the second you put them out into the real world of Hogwarts and you start free roaming, they look like total dog shit. Their face looks all fucked up. Now for me, it didn't really bother me too much because in the cutscenes it at least still looked all right. It wasn't like, jaw-dropping, like, oh my god, what is this abomination? Did I make it? It wasn't like that bad, but I can see why people would be upset, because what's the point of having a character creator and going through all the trouble to make a character to look the way that you want it to, just for them to look like complete dog shit in the actual world itself or in the game? That kind of defeats the entire purpose. But at least in cutscenes, from everything I've seen, the character looks all right. It doesn't look drastically different from what I remember making the character creator, but at least when you're just free roaming, like your character's just standing still in the open world, not in a cutscene, it looks pretty weird. It looks kind of bad. So hopefully they fix that. Also, one thing that I noticed this game did really poorly, and something I noticed as well in my own copy, was their voice pitch modulator, voice changer, if you will. So the way it works is you create your character, and I'll show a clip after this, but you choose your character and you have like middle voice. That's the normal voice that was recorded with whatever voice actor or actress, right? Do you have a lower option, or do you have a higher option to change the pitch? The problem is it sounds like a goddamn robot.
That was quite something. It was wonderful. I believe I'm really going to enjoy this class. A few cobwebs and some dust. Nothing to be concerned about. I am indeed a student, but I could very well be able to help you.
I am indeed a student, but I could very well be able to help you. It was wonderful. I believe I'm really going to enjoy it. I'm eager to get to Hogsmeade. That was quite something.
Now, how exactly that went past QA or even got approved, I couldn't tell you, but it's pretty embarrassingly bad. It's almost to the point where, like, you don't even want to do it, because it sounded like, first of all, it sounded like voices are being stacked on top of each other, or like you can literally tell that doesn't sound like the right voice. It doesn't sound like a natural voice. It just sounds fucking weird. So I don't know why they had that happen, but from what people have been saying, there's like a fix you can do. You go to your settings, and there's like a tab that's called like it's not a tab, but like you go to a setting option, and then there's a thing for voice pitch, and then you can change that manually, and then it fixes the problem. It makes it sound better. But why should I have to do that? That's kind of silly for me to even need to consider doing that, because once you make your character and you change the pitch or whatever, I'm pretty sure you can't go back and change that base pitch that you changed. So only what you changed to the setting itself is what is allowed. And so it kind of fucks with whatever pitch you already have sounded that sound like the goddamn robot. Now, moving on to the gameplay, I think that's probably the most solid part of this game and what carries the kind of lackluster story, in my opinion. The combat is actually really fucking good. It's actually, to me, well, let me preface this. Starting out and enjoying the game for the first time, it's really satisfying. It's a lot of enjoyment, and there's a lot that you can do with it, because there's up to 26 spells that you have. So you get to fuck around with some options. Again, not all of them are like all combat spells, like the spell Reparo. You're not going to repair a monster. You're not going to use it on the monster, or Lumos. You're not going to use Lumos on an enemy either. So like some spells are not, you can't use it for anything, but you do have like the purple spells and the red spells, and sometimes the yellow spells you can use as well too. You can freeze enemies, Ascendio. You got like all these different spells you can combine and make up different combinations. And so the way it works is you have like a skill set, and so you can alternate between different skill sets that you create. It's kind of like a little package, a template, if you will, and you can unlock more of those with your talent points as you progress in the story. Now, falling back to that, you do have a talent tree, a skill tree, if you will, and it's all right. I mean, they offer some pretty valuable options, things to help out your gameplay. I didn't really feel too invested to invest in all of it, but that could be because I played in normal difficulty, so that could be part of the reason why. Like there's a whole section called Room of Improvement, which is like your kind of little home that you can upgrade and, you know, tweak out the way that you want to be for you. And so in the Room of Improvement, you can make potions, you can make like little cabbage plants, shit like that, all things that you can use while you're in a battle. And so those are all great things, and I mean, I used it, but for the most part I didn't really need it. But again, that's probably because I played on normal difficulty. If you bump it up to hard, or I think there might be one more above it, I'll just put like a little annotation if not. But in a harder difficulty, it'll probably be more useful to have like different plants, upgrade your gear. But for me, I never felt forced to require it to really upgrade my gear. So could be a plus or a minus depending on how you want to enjoy your story, but that's just my experience. Now, tying back into that, I was talking about Room of Improvement. There's a skill set on your skill tree that's called Room Improvement. It pretty much all it is like upgrades and bonuses and tweaks that help make your battles easier. So you can upgrade one that if you summon one plant, then you got 2 more plants that come out at no cost to you, things like that. And so that's how it ties back into the Room of Improvement, because you can make plants and you can make potions and all that other shit. So now I want to touch on one thing in particular. You've already seen me make a video about in the past, but guess what? I'm back again to talk about it, which is performance. So I am happy to report that after the first Hogwarts patch, and now that Nvidia has released a new driver for PC, the performance is at least playable for me. I can at least play the game and not want to shut down my computer in rage. That's great, but it's still trash in my opinion. It should never been released in the state it was, and I stand on that hill. Because even though I've had people in my comments say the game works for me, I had no issues. That's great. I'm proud of you. I'm glad that you can enjoy the game and that you didn't have to buy a PS5 version for it like I did. But that doesn't negate that there are people who have these issues, and there are a lot of them. So, well, you might enjoy it and you have a great time. For me, I didn't, and a lot of other people. But again, that's just how the cookie crumbles. What might work for one build might not work for another. But just because it works for you doesn't mean it works for someone else. That's the biggest thing that needs to be understood here, and I feel like a lot of people miss that point. But going on, PS5 version is what I completed the game on. It ran fine. I had no issues. It had different performance measures, and I didn't really have any issues with any of them. I did performance mode just so I could have a stable frame rate. The game looked all right. It didn't look ugly. It didn't look like it was pixelated. None of that shit. It looked fine. It was playable, and that's really all that matters to me. I think my biggest gripe with this game is just the fact that the open world feels like almost like a Ubisoft open world, but kind of worse. Like, I felt like they had a great idea making the world open, having all this vast land and flying around. You're on your broom or your mount and you go and explore the whole world and see what they have to offer, until you realize that a lot of it's just cookie cutter, copy and paste type shit. So like, for one thing, right, to upgrade your gear limit and how much gear you can hold, there's a thing called Merlin trials. And while they're cool and they're great the first couple times you did it, there's 95 of them. Yes, you heard me right. 95 Merlin trials. That's too many, dog. That's way too many. They're just plastered around like fucking roaches. Everywhere you go across the map, you go fly for like 2 seconds and you be like, oh shit, another Merlin trial. Oh shit, another one. And the inner completionist in me kept doing it for a while until I was like, this kind of sucks. And then I looked up how many there were and I was like, 95, no shot, dog. I'm not going to finish all 95. That's a waste of my time. Gear limit is not that big of a deal, especially when gear in this game doesn't really matter to begin with. The gear system in this game is all right for what it's worth, but I feel like it could have played a lot better part, especially just like the fact, like outfits, right? If you change a piece of gear, then you got to reset what your outfit is. Like, it's cool that I can choose the select piece that I want to have displayed on my character and not change the stats to whatever piece of gear that was. But what sucks is the fact that every time you upgrade to a new piece of gear, you got to reselect whatever piece of outfit you were using before. Seems really redundant, and it shouldn't have been a thing to begin with. But I digress. That's just my issue personally with it, and pretty much everyone else actually. But going back to the open world, yes, it's all right. Like, there's things to do, but the world is a lot bigger than it really needs to be. My biggest issue with open world games, always, they do the same shit every time. They make this fucking gigantic, huge ass map where you gotta take like 20 years to go across the entire thing, but a lot of it's just empty land or empty spaces with a couple enemies thrown here and there, and maybe you got like a little trial or a little collectible that helps out your stats, and that's pretty much where it ends. And while it's all right, that doesn't make the game fun. I would rather have a more smaller condensed map that is filled to the brim with things to do in every single section than have wide open, super scattered out fucking map where there's nothing to do in between a lot of that empty space. To me, that's just kind of waste, and it seems like just a filler to pad time when you explore different areas. And then my last gripe would be the lock picking mechanic. So there's a spell called Alamora, and the way it is how you unlock locks in the game. When you first start the game, you go through all these different areas and you notice there's doors that say level 1 lock, level 2 lock, or level 3 lock. And you get to like, I want to say 20% into the game, and then you finally unlock the spell, and then you find out it's a mini game. And because of how many goddamn doors there are in this game that are locked, you're gonna have to do that mini game over and over and over and over. And it just seems so silly that for everything else, it's a goddamn spell. You just do it right off the bat, like pew. But then you do Alamora, and then it's like now you gotta be a fucking a lock picker, and now you're breaking into locks and shit, which seems pretty redundant. I don't know. I guess it was a way again to pad time, just to make it feel like you're interacting, you're working hard to break into these doors. But it gets really repetitive very quickly, and it just seems unnecessary, especially with how many doors there are in the game. I really wish that wasn't a mini game and it was just something you just do right off the bat. Or the way the game works is when you unlock Alamora, you're able to unlock level 1 locks. Now you can upgrade to level 2 and level 3 later on as you turn in these items that are required by the quest. And my idea was if you get to level 3 Alamora, you can unlock all those locks, then the mini game goes away. I think that's a nice compromise. It gives you an incentive to want to unlock level 3 doors and level 2 doors, because then you get rid of the mini game itself. Now, whether or not they're going to try and implement that in the future, who knows? But I personally think that would be a great idea to alleviate having a fucking mini game for every goddamn door that you want to open. It gets so annoying, dog. Overall, though, I think the game is great, especially for the first attempt by the studio's big game. It's not like they've had a bunch of other games under their belt that are of this size and this caliber. So I will say that this is great for that. And, you know, overall, it's just a good Harry Potter game in sense. Like, it's a good Hogwarts game. You want to experience the world. You want to have the charm, the magic, the feeling. This game delivers on that. It does it so well. It's pretty much like it's a game that's made by people who care about the IP. It's made by people who just want to see their childhood memories, or whenever they grew up with the story, they just see it come to life. And that game does it so well. And that is its biggest selling point, and I think that's what it does right. Now, while there were issues that I had, such as the lock picking or the open world or the campaigns or everything else that I've already covered in this video, while those were all issues, I don't think they were issues that were enough to make me say, you know what, fuck this game, I'm not going to play it no more, or just put it down and say, you know what, I'll wait until patches come out. Other than the performance, everything else was solid enough from a beginning to end experience where I enjoyed it pretty much all the way until the end. There was not a time where I was like, man, I wasted money on this game, because that's how I always feel. A game is worth it if I don't feel like by the end of it that I wasted my money. And for the asking price, at least on PC, $60, I think it's worth it. $70, you already know my stance on it. I don't fuck with $70 price tag, even though I did buy it for PS5, but I resold that shit when I was done, so I don't really care. I got most of my money back. It's still worth it. Like, I'm gonna just be honest. As long as you resell it on your PS5 once you're done, it's worth it, in my opinion, for the $70 asking price. But yeah, overall, I give this game a hit. It's definitely not a miss, and it's definitely a game I recommend playing at some point in time if you enjoy the Harry Potter universe. Anyways, you made this far into the video, consider giving it a like, subscribing to the channel. Let me comment below what you think. Have a great day. Yeah.